The cafe smelled of roasted coffee beans and rain-soaked roses. Outside, the city was dressed in red balloons and twinkling lights, every corner celebrating love. But inside, near the window where the cold fog kissed the glass, sat Elena, alone with a cup of lukewarm coffee and a trembling heart that had forgotten what it felt like to be chosen. Her fingers traced the rim of the cup absently, watching couples laugh, hands intertwined, hearts glowing. It was Valentine's Day, the day she once adored, and yet now, it only reminded her of everything she had lost. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and love that finds its way back even when the world seems dark, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Let's spread stories that remind people to never give up on love. Elena had once believed her life was a fairy tale. She had loved Daniel, a man whose laughter could light up a room and whose promises felt eternal. They'd met in this very cafe 5 years ago, both reaching for the same last chocolate pastry, laughing at the coincidence. It became their place, their little corner of happiness where every Valentine's Day was celebrated with candles, cards, and whispered dreams about the future. But that future never came. A tragic accident 2 years ago had stolen Daniel away from her, leaving nothing but echoes of his voice and the emptiness of what could have been. She had spent the first Valentines after his death locked inside her apartment, clutching his old sweater, replaying their memories like fragile film reels. This year, she promised herself she'd step out, if only to prove to herself that she could. So she came back to the same cafe. She wore her pink coat, the one Daniel said made her look like spring, and brought a single red rose. She placed it on the table beside her coffee, whispering softly, "For you, Danny." As the hours passed, laughter filled the cafe around her. Couples exchanged gifts, children ran around with paper hearts, and the staff smiled knowingly at her, recognizing her as the woman who always sat by the window each February 14th. Time moved slowly. The sunlight faded into amber, and the waiter replaced the open sign with closed, though he didn't rush her. She had become a quiet part of the place's story, a symbol of love and loss that no one had the heart to disturb. Just as she was about to stand and leave, a small voice interrupted her thoughts. "Hi," said a little girl no older than 6, her blonde hair braided neatly and her cheeks rosy from the cold. She wore a bright red coat and clutched a handmade card with a big red heart drawn on it. Her eyes sparkled with innocent joy as she approached Elena's table. "This is for you," the child said shyly, holding the card out. Elena blinked, surprised. "For me?" she whispered, her voice catching in her throat. The little girl nodded eagerly. "My daddy said to give it to you." Before Elena could ask, the girl continued, her words tumbling out like the flutter of wings. "He said you're the angel he lost." The world seemed to stop. The clinking of cups, the murmur of voices, the hum of the cafe, all faded into silence. Elena's breath hitched, her heart pounding painfully in her chest. What did you say?" she managed to whisper. The girl smiled wider, proud of her delivery. "My daddy said you're the angel he lost, but he found you again." Tears welled in Elena's eyes. For a moment she couldn't move, couldn't think. Then instinctively her gaze shifted toward the door. Standing a few feet away, hands tucked into his coat pockets, was a man she hadn't seen in years, Daniel's brother Ethan. He looked older, more solemn, but his eyes carried the same warmth she remembered. The sight of him brought back a flood of memories. Daniel's laughter, their family dinners, the nights Ethan would tease his brother for being hopelessly in love. Ethan stepped forward slowly, hesitant, almost afraid of breaking the fragile moment. "Elena," he said softly when their eyes met. His voice cracked, thick with emotion. "I didn't mean to startle you. This is Lily, my daughter." Elena wiped her tears, her lips trembling into a small, broken smile. "She's beautiful," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Just like her father?" she asked, meaning Daniel. But Ethan shook his head gently. "No," he replied, his eyes glistening. "She's mine." He explained that after Daniel's passing, he had drifted away from everything, his job, his family, even the city. It was too painful to stay. But a few months ago, he returned for work and often passed by this cafe, seeing Elena through the window. He wanted to say something, to tell her that she wasn't alone, but every time he couldn't find the words, So tonight, he told Lily a story about a woman who had once been an angel in her uncle's life, an angel who had brought light and laughter. And Lily, in her innocent heart, wanted to find that angel and make her smile again. As Elena listened, her tears fell freely. The child's gesture, so pure and unexpected, cracked something open inside her, something that had been locked away for too long. She bent down and hugged Lily tightly, feeling warmth flood her heart for the first time in years. The card trembled in her hand as she opened it. Inside, written in uneven crayon letters, were the words, "Love never ends." Ethan watched her, his eyes heavy with unspoken memories. "He would have wanted you to be happy," he said quietly. "Daniel, he used to tell me that you were his miracle. He'd want you to keep living, not just surviving." For the first time in a long while, Elena smiled through her tears. "I didn't think I'd ever feel anything again," she admitted, "until she came up to me." They sat together after that, three souls bound by love and loss, sharing stories under the soft cafe lights. The staff, though ready to close, let them stay. The air around them seemed lighter, filled with laughter and the faint hum of hope. Ethan told Elena how he had found strength through his daughter, how she reminded him daily that love could grow again, even in broken soil. And Elena realized that love didn't die. It transformed. Daniel's love had lived on in the kindness of a child, in the courage of a brother, and in the quiet endurance of her own heart. As snow began to fall outside, the world beyond the window blurred into silver and white. The cafe lights reflected in the glass, soft and golden, wrapping the moment in warmth. Lily fell asleep on her father's lap, clutching the red card, and for the first time in years, Elena felt peace. When Ethan offered to walk her home, she hesitated, but only for a second. The night air was cold but comforting, the kind that stings your cheeks yet clears your mind. They walked side by side, not speaking much, just listening to the rhythmic sound of their footsteps and the distant hum of the city celebrating love. At the corner where they would part ways, Ethan stopped. "Elena," he said quietly, "I know I'm not him. I never could be. But maybe one day, if it's not too late, I'd like to share a cup of coffee with you. Not for Daniel's memory, just for us." Elena looked up at him, her eyes shimmering under the streetlight. She took a deep breath, the kind that feels like starting over, and smiled. "Maybe one day," she whispered. "But not for us. For hope." Ethan nodded, his expression gentle, understanding. He placed a hand over his heart, a silent promise, then turned to carry Lily home. Elena watched them go, the little girl's red coat glowing like a heartbeat against the pale snow. When she finally walked back into her apartment, she placed the rose in a glass of water beside Daniel's old photograph. "You kept your promise," she whispered, smiling softly. "You sent me an angel too." The city lights shimmered through the window as if the stars themselves had come down to listen. Elena sat by the window, holding Lily's card, feeling her heart beat again. Not in pain, but in gratitude. She realized that love isn't bound by time, or even by loss. Sometimes it comes back to us in forms we never expect. A child's smile, a kind word, a familiar face we thought we'd never see again. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to keep these emotional stories alive. Let's remind the world that love doesn't end. It transforms, heals, and returns when we least expect it. Before you go, tell us in the comments, do you believe that love can find its way back, even after loss?